Hey guys, welcome back. Today we're talking about wire fraud with regards to real estate. I'm Jeb Smith with Coldwell Banker Realty here in Huntington Beach, California, and thanks for taking the time to watch. So the question is, what is wire fraud when it comes to real estate? This is, something that's been kind of a hot button topic over the last couple of years. With regards to real estate, we now have disclosures, when working with buyers and sellers that have to deal with wire fraud or have to do with wire fraud rather. And it's something that I talk about to every buyer and seller that I'm dealing with because it is such a hot item and it's something that has, it's not really mainstream, but until it happens to somebody that you know or until you see it in the news. And so that's what we're talking about today. So wire fraud in real estate essentially is, someone masking, if you will, as a third party or masking as an escrow company, trying to get you essentially to wire funds to them instead of who you should be wiring it to. So I'm making this very complicated in my definition, but essentially, wire fraud is when you think you're wiring money to one party, but you're actually wiring it to someone else. And that someone else in this case has bad intentions with regards to the funds that you're wiring. So an example would be someone goes to buy a house. They're planning on putting 50% down. Okay, so say we're saying, the house is worth $500,000. They're planning on putting $250,000 down as a down payment. The wire fraud comes in when that couple goes to wire their funds at the close of escrow for the down payment. So that $250,000, they go to wire it to what they think is the escrow company, and they end up wiring it to someone else. And so the escrow company comes back and says, hey, we haven't received your funds. And you say, whoa, what do you mean? I wired the funds to escrow to the number that you provided. And then there's some differences. What happens is there's a difference in the account number or the bank or what have you. And that money has now gone to a third party. And that third party has now taken that money and disappeared with it. Right? That is where wired fraud comes into real estate. And the question is, how does this happen? Because these are such big numbers that you hear about with regards to cases in real estate. How does it happen that somebody wires this money and has no idea where it's going? Well, what happens is, escrow companies are a lot more diligent about it now, and they do different security measures in order to prevent this from happening, but it still does happen. And so what happens is somehow that third party that I mentioned masked themselves as the escrow company. So traditionally what happens is escrow company gives you wiring instructions to wire the funds at the close of escrow. So they say, hey, this is where you should wire your money for your down payment or for your closing, after signing loan docs. This is where you're going to wire the money. This is how much, etc. What happens is a third party somehow masks themselves as the escrow company and then changes those wiring instructions to the buyer. So the email may show exactly the same. The name may show exactly the same. So they're getting an email in most cases from a third party pretending to be that escrow company. And so when they pretend to be that escrow company, they make an excuse as to why the bank account has changed. And in some cases, it may be that they had to close that account for fraudulent reasons or whatever it is, but they make it sound very legit. And so the buyer receives this email right at the close of escrow. They're excited. They're ready to close on their house. And they get this email from who they think is escrow, asking them to no longer wire the money to where, they originally wanted to be wired and to change the bank account to X, if you will. And so what happens is buyers, again, in the heat of the moment, take that information. They look at the email. It all looks legit. The signature is all the same as the original person they were talking to at escrow. And now they take that money and they wire it to the new escrow instructions. The problem is that where the fraud comes in is that person is pretending to be the escrow company when in fact they aren't the escrow company at all. And so now you're wiring money to someone that has nothing to do with the real estate transaction. And as soon as you wire that money, it hits that bank account. That third party then takes that money from that bank account and wires it out of the country to somebody completely different to get the money out of the US. And now your money has disappeared. So your 20%, 30%, 50%, 100% well, depending on what you're buying, paying for the property and how much you're putting down, has now gone. In some cases, I've had colleagues of mine, $800,000 disappeared. There was a recent case in the news here locally where somebody lost 700 and something thousand dollars when buying a property because they wired the money to whom they thought was escrow, and in fact it was a third party. And the reason I'm bringing this up, guys, is because it's very, very important. If you are a buyer buying a property and you receive wiring instructions from escrow, before you wire any money, you are calling the escrow company when you're in the bank and talking to that escrow officer to verify the information of where you're wiring the money. Again, a lot of escrow companies now make you call in to get the account number when you go to wire the money, but at the end of the day, a lot of this goes overlooked because people are excited, people are busy, people have a lot going on, and they just take the information and run with it without really thinking, and money disappears. And what happens is once that money disappears, it could be gone forever. I mean, the FBI doesn't get involved in a lot of these cases. Sometimes the money comes back depending on who your bank is with, or who you bank with rather, and who you wired the money from. They may protect you, but you can't count on that. These are large sums of money. They're going out to people that have bad intentions of using that money to essentially to take it out of the country so it cannot be located. And so if you're buying a house, selling a house, make sure that you're talking to the escrow company. You have the right account information, and when you provide your account information to them, that you're providing it to them in writing, not through an email. If you're receiving funds from the sale of a property, make sure that all the accurate information is there, because otherwise you could be in a position where you could lose a lot of money. So that's what wire fraud is with regards to real estate. I hope that's helpful in explaining it. I get this question a lot, and it's very, very important. I talk to a lot of buyers and a lot of sellers about it, but before you're wiring any money, you are verifying who you're wiring that money to so that you don't end up in a position where the funds are gone. So if you have additional questions about wire fraud, about this process at all, do me a favor, comment below or contact me directly. I would love to talk to you. And as always, thanks for taking the time to watch, and we'll see you again soon. Have an awesome day. Bye-bye.